All right, guys, welcome to Pat's Pick of the Week on YouTube. We're jumping into our next video here. It's not necessarily a how-to video, but it's definitely going to give you some tips and tricks if you plan on taking your bike out of storage and it's still running. So we'll go over a few things as to how to prepare for winter or how to prepare for storage.
Yo, dude, what are you doing here, bro?
What, man? I'm getting my bike ready for storage.
What?
Winterizing it.
No. Oh, dude, I gotta show you how to do this. Come inside the shop with me, bro.
Oh, man. Getting it ready. Look at that.
Winterizing your vehicle can be a real headache. I'm here to make it less of a headache. We got some cool products to use and some cool tips to show you, so it'll be super easy for you guys when you pull your bike out of storage and you want it to run. For some of you guys, it could be as early as September, maybe even August. You want to start planning to get your bike ready for storage. For some of us, you'll just be riding all year long, and I'm just talking for no reason. So we'll get into a few things here soon. Again, this is not a how-to. This is definitely just a tips video. I'm not showing you guys exactly how to do every single bike. Every single bike's going to be different depending on where you live, what products you have access to, and where you're going to be storing this bike. So let's get into it. We got a few things we're going to need for this tips video and how to store your vehicle and how to get it ready. So a few things you'll want to grab are maybe some screwdrivers, some sockets, little tools here and there that are going to be able to get you access to your battery, your air filter. If you need to lube your chain, you're going to want to make sure you can get it up on a stand. Basic things that every motorcycle rider should have for their own motorcycle. So we also talk about some products we're going to need, and big one is a battery tender. If you don't have a battery tender and you plan on storing your bike for more than a month, good luck, because you're probably going to pull your bike out and you'll probably need a battery. Not every time, but a battery tender is going to be able to extend that life of your battery, and it's going to make things so much easier on your part. The other things we have, we got chain grease that we're going to use, Joker, which is a lubricant that we use here in the shop. It's super easy to spray on, and it just keeps things lubed very well for years. Fogging oil, we got motor oil because we're going to want to change the motor oil in our engine, coolant because we're going to want to swap out that coolant, and a few other things that obviously we'll go over later in the video, but these will just get you started and get your process rolling. Another big thing is you're really going to want to have to pay attention to where you're storing this bike. You don't want to store this bike in an area that's going to be too damp or too cold. If you have to, just make sure you're not covering your bike. All that moisture will get caught up in your bike, and even though bike covers are really good, they can be just as bad in certain situations. Now also, we want to take a close eye to what's around our motorcycle. We don't want anything falling on the tank, kicking our bike over. Kids can come in there and smack it with the bike handlebar. You don't want any of that going on, so make sure if you're storing your motorcycle, it's in a nice, clean area. If you can make it dry, awesome. If you can get it heated, even better. So let's really get into it, guys. We've got a nice area to store our bike. We have the tools and the products to use to get it into storage. Let's get started on what to do. So first things first, I definitely suggest washing your bike. Now this bike would be pretty easy to clean, seeing as it's a brand new 2022 MT-07, but it is our example for today's video. And if it's not this clean, just try and get it as clean as possible. We want to use products that are non-corrosive. So if you're spraying it down with water, that is a corrosive material. Make sure you get all that water out of there. You blow out all the crevices with an air dryer or some sort of blower, and then we're going to hit it with some silicone or maybe some sort of protectant to make sure that that corrosive material doesn't stick on your bike anywhere. Next thing is our fuel system. This is going to be huge, especially now that today's fuel sucks so much. We have ethanol at least 10% in all the fuel today, and it is so bad for motorcycles, ATVs, side-by-sides, and even your cars. Cars just don't get as affected because we're driving them every day. So this vehicle does not have a carburetor. I won't be able to show you where a carburetor is at on this vehicle, but we'll try and throw a video in mid-video here just to show you where one of those is at and what it looks like. So if you do have a carburetor, or if you do have access to draining your fuel system, I plan on draining the fuel system out of this, making sure it's bone dry, and then we'll show you what to do once it's dry. Talking about the fuel system, I have some liquid performance ethanol equalizer. We use this here at the shop. It keeps the ethanol and the water separating from your fuel, keeps the fuel good for a little bit longer than usual. It's not going to keep it good forever, but if you have this in there, it'll keep it good for way longer than if you didn't. So you can either put a couple ounces into a 5-gallon pail, or you can put a couple ounces right here in your tank, and we'll just open that up, pour it right in. Now, I'm not going to pour a whole bunch of this in. I'm talking about a capful. So we'll show you exactly how much we're talking about later, but as for now, you just got to remember ethanol equalizer or something very similar. You can get it at Walmart, AutoZone. You can come here at Mount Holly Motorsports and grab it, but get some ethanol equalizer or some fuel stabilizer. It is the same thing, and make sure you're treating all of your fuels with it. That goes for lawnmowers, ATVs, side-by-sides, on-road motorcycles, off-road motorcycles, you name it. This is not going to hurt your fuel system. It's only going to help it. Going even more depth into the fuel system, we want to make sure that all the fuel in our tank is not only treated, but we want to top off that gas tank. We want this thing almost to the brim of this gas can lid, and we want that so that no water, no air can get in there. We want that as tight as possible. The more water and the more air that can build in there, the worse your fuel is going to be coming into springtime. So bad fuel means no start, means you got some headaches and you got to fork out some cash. Not fun. Some of you guys are going to be dealing with some carburetors, and that's going to give us a few other steps here. So it's actually, in my opinion, a little bit easier to work with a carburetor because they have so many mechanical operated pieces inside them. It's way easier than an electronic system where you need the battery to run your fuel out. But here we go, talking about carburetors. They do have a drain at the bottom of them. Most of them do. You'll want to drain that fuel right out of the carb. You'll want to get the fresh fuel into that carb with the fuel stabilizer. Talking about carbureted bikes a little bit, I want to go in depth a little bit on fuel valves and the different kinds we may have. We may have a vacuum fuel valve on some vehicles. Now, obviously do some research. It's just as easy to Google this kind of stuff. But I'm here to tell you, if you do have a vacuum fuel valve, that vacuum fuel valve is going to allow a little bit of fuel to get past the stopper, and even if it's technically off, it doesn't really have an off, more has a prime section on the fuel valve, but we want to just leave that valve on. You don't want all that fuel sitting in your fuel tank, sitting on top of that valve, so just do me a favor, leave that valve open, and you'll be in a way better shape coming into the springtime. If your fuel is conditioned in here and it's sitting in your carburetor, it shouldn't hurt a lot. It shouldn't separate a lot. It should do the best job it can. I do apologize if you do run into some carburetor issues. You'll just have to figure out a better system or a better way of doing things the next time you store your bike. You can always go to your bike as long as you have access to it, which we were talking about earlier in the video. You need access to your stored vehicle at all times. You can always go to your vehicle and run your bike for a few minutes. Getting fresh fuel through the fuel system is never a bad thing. It can only help things. Some people don't like running their bikes cold for a few minutes, shutting them off, but I would generally say that that's not as bad as having to clean your carburetor every single time you pull it out of storage. What I have here in front of us is a battery tender. Make sure if you have a lithium battery, you are getting a lithium battery tender or a lithium battery charger. You don't want to charge a lithium battery without one. Lithium batteries are very special. They're awesome. I do definitely suggest going to get a lithium battery for your vehicle if you can get one. Not all vehicles can get one, but on most vehicles you can, and they are so much better than the lead acid batteries we dealt with or the AGMs. So underneath this seat here, we'd be able to access our MT07 battery that's right in here. Now, if you don't have access to a battery tender or you can't afford one, which is fine, disconnect your battery, pull it out of your bike, and put it on a block of wood and store it away in a warm place. Next things next is our oil change. We want to make sure we get that bad oil out of there for the winter time. That way when we fire our bike up in the springtime, we got fresh oil ready to go. Now, I recommend doing an oil filter every single time you do an oil change. That's a must. You don't want to be changing oil with a bad oil filter in there. It's just a waste of your time and a waste of your money. Next thing we want to change is going to be our coolant. We want to get that old coolant out of there we used all year. Got hot, got cold. It's probably still good, but to be honest with you, I'd definitely tell you to change it. Coolant can go bad, and it's never a bad thing to have fresh stuff in your motorcycle. Next thing I'm going to talk about is for most of you off-road guys and your street guys, mostly your off-road guys, because Air filters are going to get a lot more dirty for your off-road guys. That means ATVs, side-by-sides, motocross bikes, trail bikes, things like that. Want to make sure their air box is nice and clean along with their air filter, and maybe throw a new air filter in there. You've probably been using the same air filter for a while, and it's never a bad thing to run a fresh one. Make sure your chain is well greased, and I'm talking about no matter if it's sitting for months or if it's not sitting for months. If you're riding this thing, that chain should be well greased as is. And obviously, if you have a drive shaft or a drive belt, we're not talking to you guys. So as we stated before, if you do have spots where you think water might have got into, or any type of corrosive materials like your degreasers or stuff like that, want to make sure these places are well oiled or well greased or well siliconed. So you want to make sure you coat your engine with a coat of silicone. We use SC1 here. You can use some other products too. SC1's from Maxima. Make sure you check those out. They're really good products, and they're going to keep your engine looking nice, and it's also going to keep it coated with a nice silicone coating and make sure that there is no corrosive material sitting on there ruining things. My next suggestion is for the people that have access to it, had the money to do it, or had the need to do it. Motocross bikes, it's a pretty easy one. Just put it up on a bike stand. That's gonna be pretty easy for all of us. If you don't have one, you can get one as cheap as like 40 or 50 bucks, and that ranges all the way up to like $200-300 for some really nice ones. Street bikes, you can obviously put your street bike up on a bike stand. There's different companies that make different types. I'm gonna make it super easy on you. The reason why I'm saying this is for tire maintenance. Now, we want to make sure our tires are pressurized. We just want to make sure we prolong our tire life by not leaving them in the same spot on a cold floor all winter. This is going to even be for your guys that are storing the bikes in warm weather. If your bike tire sits in the same spot, it's not good. So if you don't have access to a bike stand, you can't get your motorcycle up in the air, don't worry. Like we said earlier, you should have access to your motorcycle in storage. Roll that bike around, get it in a different spot. Even if it's a couple inches forward, a couple inches back, that's going to be better than those motorcycle tires sitting in one specific spot. ATV tires, side-by-side tires are going to be a little bit tougher. Make sure they're pressurized. Bring a bike pump with you the next time you're accessing your winterized vehicle. Make sure there's enough air in there, because if not, you'll be forking out some serious cash come springtime. I definitely suggest you put an insurance on your vehicle. Don't take your insurance off of your vehicle in the wintertime. I know it's going to save you a few bucks over the next few months, but in the long run, if somebody steals or anything happens to your bike while it's in storage, you are going to be in really bad shape. You're going to be super ticked off. So that was winterizing, or getting your vehicle ready for storage, from Pat's Picks on YouTube. I really appreciate you guys checking us out, and I hope you guys can join us in the next one. Remember, preventative maintenance is key, having access to your bike is key, but all in all, riding is key. So we want to be able to pull that bike out in the springtime, be able to ride it, pulling that bike out whenever you want, and being able to ride it. Not riding's not cool, so get on something and get out there. So I would love for you guys to tell me what I did wrong, or tell me what you do differently. We're here for tips and tricks, so throw it in the comments, throw us a like, give us a subscribe, and hit that bell, because we want to know what's going on with you guys and how we can make these videos better. Thank you guys.